Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the We Bought a Franchise podcast. I'm Jack Johnson.
I'm Jill Johnson.
And we are here today with a very special guest. We've got Brigham Dallas from Hello Sugar. Welcome to the podcast.
So great to be on your podcast. Thanks for having me.
We've been so excited to start working with your brand. And for those of you that don't know, Jill and I, of course, are franchise owners of Pink's Windows in Palm Beach County. And on this podcast, we share our sort of journey, building our franchise. And Brigham, just for your knowledge, we're franchise consultants. We've been franchise consultants since 2017, and we're former franchisors. So we've been on your side too.
Wow.
So the whole idea of this podcast, though, was for us to sort of bring people along on our journey of building our franchise. And so we kind of do episodes where we talk about our growth of our franchise, the struggles that we face, as well as the victories. And I'm happy to say we were the highest performing franchisee for Pink's last month again, of course.
Let's go. That's awesome.
We also love to bring on franchisors like you, as well as franchisees, to learn from you and get best practices. So, tell us a little bit about your story. How did this all come to be? What led to starting Hello Sugar?
Yeah, it's not a journey that was intentional. It wasn't something that I was like, okay, I want to build a franchise. I want to build this. I was working in a digital ads diet space. So I was like selling diet pills online and I absolutely hated it. And I was working for somebody and I was like, I got to get out of this. And one time I was talking to a friend and she was like, I had to pay $20,000 in taxes. I'm like, whoa, like $20,000 in taxes. Like, how much do you make? And she's like, I made $100,000. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, I thought you were like a hairstylist. And she's like, no, I do waxing. I'm like, run those economics by me. And she goes, well, I do 15-minute Brazilians. So I can do 4 an hour at $45 a piece. And so I was like, wait, you make $180 an hour doing Brazilian waxing? Like, how much is your cost? And she's like, it's just wax. So it's like $3 a service. I'm like, whoa, you like make more than a lawyer does. This is like incredible. Like I had no idea. She's a part-time worker with like a single mom. And I'm like, this is amazing. And so I started talking to her. I was like, hey, would you be willing to come down to Phoenix? She lived in Utah and help me like open this, like just train my first staff member. She said, yeah. So I flew her down, spent $3,000 on the first build, and it was in the back of a plastic surgeon's office. And I got started. I was 26 years old. It was a 1-room studio. I didn't even know what a Brazilian wax was. I was so like, I Googled it afterwards and I was like, whoa, like people do this. This is crazy. Yeah. Like it was not like this like intentional business. I just wanted to get out of the diet space.
Yeah.
And so it started the first year. I didn't have a ton of money. I had that 1-room studio and I just built it. And I started figuring out the process. We want to do memberships instead of packages and figuring out who to sell to. And with my digital ads background, I was really good at like trying to identify a brand because I could post an idea on Facebook, see the engagement of it, and then see what worked, right? And I noticed that all of like our reviews and the reviews of competitors that were positive said that she makes me feel comfortable. And so I noticed like all the other brands were like high fashion and like, on a beach. I just wanted people to feel like it was real. So I used like real women. I didn't use like models. I didn't use attractive people. I just used real women coming in and it got 3 times the engagement. And so I knew I was onto something. And so I built that up for about 6 months. And then I was like, okay, I feel good about this. I know I can at least pay rent because I'm making enough on my space to pay rent. And so then I took my life savings, every credit card I had, every loan I could get, and then my line of credit and maxed all of it. And then I built my first location. And, I went to that location like 10 times, middle of the night, daytime. I mean, I just like sat out there and I was like, is this the spot like that's going to like ruin me? Not like I'm not going to like make this like, is it going to ruin me? Like, I don't know, like I'm going to lose everything if this doesn't work. Right. So I feel what franchisees feel when they put their savings into this. And I take that sacredly. Like, I don't think of that as like a small thing. And so I built that first location and I moved the suite that I had inside the back of the plastic surgeon's office over. And I at least knew that I could pay rent at that point. And so then at that point, my mom, bless her heart, right, Southern girl from South Carolina, flew out. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment and she lived in 1 bedroom, I lived in the other, and we worked reception. So she worked reception one day, I worked reception the other. And we just built it. And that was like 6 months until I could afford a receptionist. So it was really like, bare bones. 5 years in, I've got 10 locations. It's 2020. And I'm teaching how to start a small business at a university. And I'm teaching entrepreneurship. And I loved it. It was like my calling in life. And I was like, you know what, this would be cool to like help others start the business I'm most passionate about, which is Hello Sugar. And I felt like it was a good business at that point. So I went and started franchising in 2021.
So
And
did
then,
you, sorry to interrupt, did you say you had 10 corporate locations
yeah,
before you started franchising?
yes, yeah.
Wow.
Were they all in the same area?
Yeah. So what I do is every year I would build one more suite.
Okay.
And then after that, I would like turn it into a flagship. And when I'm turning into a flagship, I'm building one more suite. So every year I just did that same formula of just suite to flagship. And then at some point I had multiple suites and I was like, okay, this one is doing better than this one. I had like basically incubators. You know, like when people go to market, they like do a big promo, they like try to get a lot of pre-sale members in. The incubator was the pre-sale. Like I could know that something was working and feel like I was going to be okay moving into this heavy rent. And these suites only took like 2 months to put up.
Mhm.
And so I could get those things with my advertising profitable, like within months, like right away. It almost, I mean, you guys are in like a home service business, right? Is that what Pinky is? Like it almost felt like a home service business. I'm up and running in 2 months. I'm like driving people. It was super fast and had great margins to it. And I could take that and build it into the flagship model that like worked really well. So I did that for 5 years.
That's awesome. You know, when I was on the franchisor side at a franchise called Home Care Assistance, which provided in-home care to seniors, we had multiple corporate locations and we would use them to test new services for our franchisees, which I always thought was really cool.
Yeah.
You know, we would talk, you know, for example, like we started doing things like, you know, chair-based yoga for seniors in our office, and we would test like cooking programs. And I think that's such a cool thing for franchisors to do, to be able to have their own corporate locations where they can test new innovations and be familiar with running the business. So kudos to you. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on you there. So we're 2020. We've got 10 locations. It's time to franchise. What happens next?
Yeah. So Jack, I mean, but to that point, like, I think it's also important that a franchisor knows what the franchisee goes through.
Yes.
100%.
There's this like decision. There's a lot of decisions that like I didn't realize that a franchisor has to make about how to charge and what to charge for and like how to build together. And the franchisee is different than a franchisor's motivations unless the franchisor has franchise locations as well. And so I pay all the same fees as the franchisees do. So I'm thinking just like a franchisee.
I mean, it's a great point because we as franchise consultants living the lifestyle of a franchisee, I think keeps us sharp for what our clients are going to go through. And for those for those people out there, those franchise consultants out there who haven't been a franchise owner, it's just a whole different life as you're building a business, as you're scaling a business, as you're hiring, as you're going through the ups and downs. And so I think to your point as a franchisor, sleeping and breathing the same lifestyle as a franchisee, I think that really goes a long way because, you know, having a focus on franchisees' profitability, making that such a priority is huge.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like you said, both of you said, having the experience just makes a huge difference. So, you know, as Jack was saying, when, you know, as franchise consultants, having Pinks is very helpful to us now when we're trying to help people find franchises, because we've now been on the other side and we're, you know, kind of seeing our whole, I think, approach and how we communicate to our clients has changed a lot since we've been in their shoes. On the flip side, when we started Franchise Insiders, we have a similar story to you. You know, we went right in. We sold our house. We did all the things you did too. So when we would talk to our clients in that sense, it was also like, yes, we haven't necessarily bought a franchise, but we started our company. So we understand the fear. We understand the excitement of, you know, putting everything you own into a business and, you know, crossing your fingers and hoping that it works. So I love hearing that you have that experience. I think that's really helpful for anyone that comes on board because you've been there, you've done it. Like you said, you're still doing it, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
I've got I'm opening my 17th location in January.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. How many franchise locations do you have?
All right. So in 2021, I'm going to give kind of like the growth model of this because people think it's like really crazy where it is today. In 2021, I wasn't expecting to build a national company. I think people have these like grand ambitions. My stuff's a little bit more like, I just wanted my friends to do the same thing I was doing. Like, so I was teaching and I had a couple of friends that were like, Brigham, you got a great business. Like anyway, like we could like be partners. And I was like, maybe like franchising could work for this. And this could allow the relationship for that. And so the first year I just went to my friends And so my friends started Hello Sugars in their markets in different areas, and that was it. And a lot of it was my former students at the school I was teaching at. And so by the end of year one, we had maybe 15 locations open, and we were testing things and learning a ton. And when my friends opened, I decided, you know what, I'll walk the walk as well. Like, I'll open one in a different market. So I opened in Nashville. I opened two locations out there, and started like building those. And I'd go there every month, and like, the whole thing. And then the next year, we started like offering it to the public because I felt like the business was strong. So it wasn't like just go out and have anybody. It was like, I got to make sure this is good first, right? And then we're now so we started 2021. We're coming up to the end of 2024. So it's like 3.5 years since we started. And we're 110 locations. Yeah. It's, I think, the fastest growing beauty brand right now in the US.
Wow.
Certainly in the waxing space. I mean, we're absolutely crushing it. We're almost doubling again this year, and we've doubled every year in size. And so it's been a compelling story, and I think it's compelling because of the product offering, kind of hybrid, kind of like a home service company. It's quick to get up, it's low cost to start, high returns, and the amount of work needed from a franchisee is like minimal because we automate almost everything in this business. It's just relationships they have to manage, and so people are very attracted to that.
So when you talk about automating things for the franchisee, what does that include? Like, where are you guys helping? Is that like in terms of the support to get locations open, the advertising? Talk about that if you would.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I think as a franchisor, I think about my friends and I'm like, why would they do this instead of just doing it themselves? And I thought about this for a long time. I'm like, I was looking at like salon suite concepts, like Salons by JC, Phoenix Salons. And I'm like, okay, that first year, the franchisee loves them because they help them get up and running. They give them a business plan, everything. But year 5 through 10, they just hate them because they're like paying this royalty and they're not doing anything for them. And so I was like, I've got to make this business so valuable to my franchisees that it's a partnership and they want me as a partner and they're willing to do a 6% equity stake, let's call it, in their company for that partnership, right? And so I was like, how do I do that? And so I looked at every single piece of the business strategically and said, how do we automate this for them to take it off their hands? And if we could do that, maybe we could be a great partner for them and lower their costs. That's what a franchisor should do. It should take economies of scale and lower the cost for all segments of a franchise. That's my personal opinion. So let's start off with the basics. Like, we help with all the products. Like, we were buying sugar for $28 a can. Now it's like $16 a can. We almost halved it. And we've done that across all of our product mix. So our products are cheaper than they could buy for themselves. Then on the advertising front, that was my background. I taught at a university advertising. I ran a company for 10 years on like Fortune 500 level advertising. I know this space really well. We can open a salon and 5 days before they open, start ads. And we can fill that salon by the time they open 5 days later. And we can do that throughout the whole thing. And so instead of running like a brand fund, which I think I'm like vehemently opposed to, like I think they're like scammy a little bit, we don't do any kind of advertising where they have to pay a royalty on it. Pay for performance. So unless they get a completed appointment, they don't pay us any kind of management fee. So it's $7.50 if they complete an appointment. If they don't complete an appointment, they don't pay anything. So everything's like, and we can track the ROI on this all the way through, all the way from leads to bookings to completeds to memberships, the ROI all the way through on these ads. And I'm happy to say for every $1 that people spend on ads, they're getting $50 in revenue and $12 in profit. Like, it's printing money for us right now. Yeah. And so on the ad side, like most companies, like most franchisors, like that's a big deal. They don't even think about it. Like literally 95% of people just use our advertising and that's it. And then on the other side of things, we also run the reception. So I remember I told you like we ran reception in the beginning for them or like for ourselves. Like I had my mom come out. Reception sucks. Like sucks. Like it's the worst thing about a retail business.
Yeah.
40% of your staff are reception. They're minimum wage. They don't care about your business. They're all part-time. They're going to college. They quit within 3 to 4 months. I mean, I could go on, but it sucks. And so we went through and said, I just said to myself, what if we just didn't have reception? What if we just got rid of them? And so I fired all our receptionists. I had a ton of them. It was costing me $6,000 a month per flagship. I fired them all. I mean, I was nice. I gave them like 2 months. I was like, hey, you're gonna have to find another job. I was a good boss still. And we started outsourcing to the Philippines and did only text. I didn't want like the accent to like bother it. So we did only text. And then the next year we started automating it. And then once ChatGPT hit and like AI, instead of investing in an app, I put $250,000 into AI technology and built our own robust system. And I'm happy to say today, Lululemon's at like a 70% automation of e-commerce. They're best in class. And we're at 64% automation in the service space. So not e-commerce. Service is way harder than e-commerce. We're at 64% complete automation. So for our franchisees, we're able to handle all of the reception. It's like 40% of the business is taken out. They don't even have to think about. They're like half the employees, and it's so much easier now that that's gone. And we charge per completed appointment. So it's $3.25 per completed appointment. So you have full-time reception day and night. If you had 100 appointments, it'd be $325 a month. And that for me is about half the cost as if I did it in-house and had to manage all those employees.
So you don't have anyone sitting at like a front desk?
When you come in, you check in on an iPad and the esthetician checks you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say the range of opening, getting one of these things off the ground and open in terms of costs is? And let's really put time to this. Like, let's say, all right, we're having this great conversation. Jill and I are like, dude, you got Boca Raton available? Let's go. What kind of investment, what kind of time frame are we looking at?
Yeah. I'm going to go through those two things and then site selection. That's okay as well. I think that's a big part. So we could go two routes. Some franchisees are like, I want to do a suite. It's way less risk. It incubates, but it doesn't make as much money as a flagship. So it makes about 3 times less. Right now on the Item 19, we're about $65,000 a year in profit on a suite. So that takes about $110,000 to open up, $65,000 after it's mature. So after 1 year. So anyone open over 1 year. And I'll tell you this.
You do the suite as you're building, I would imagine the suite as you're building up the flagship, right?
Yeah. So you could build 2 suites, find out which one's better, and then go put the flagship in that location, right? Like go ahead and get the data. And then it might take the other one a little longer, but eventually that will become a flagship too. We just got to make sure, we build at the right pace. Mm-hmm. Other people are like, hey, let's do a flagship right out the gate. We're just going to spend a lot of money on marketing and we're just going to get up and running faster. Because to me, like the suites are not the end game. Like franchisees for us, they're using suites to hedge risk and not to like, I want to live on $65,000 a year, right? Yeah. And the profits for the flagships are much higher than that. So it's like 150 to 250 is what we're seeing in the profit range for flagships on our Item 19.
And by the way, you show on your Item 19, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way,
for those of you listening, we're not making any types of offers to sell franchises here. And if you're in a registration state, Hello Sugar may not be available for you. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's lawyer this. Yeah. We believe in radical transparency. We publish every single franchisee's P&L that qualify in that 1 year mark.
Wow.
And I don't care if it's good or bad, it's getting published. And the reason why is I want radical transparency. I want people that are going to be my partners to know exactly what they're getting into. I will tell them if it's a bad market. I will say, don't go there. Like I had a guy come up to me. He was like, hey, this thing's like already built out. It was like a competitor salon. Like it would just be cosmetic. And I just said, no, like I don't want the business. I don't want you like failing on something because it's a bad location. Right. And so I think that's another reason why we grow. Like I've turned down locations that should be open because they just won't make the person as profitable. I don't care about the money on this side. For the franchisor side, I just want our franchisees to be super profitable. Yeah. So, and then like you said, like you can use the suite, incubate it, and then turn that into a flagship. That's freaking cool because that takes all the risk out. That for me was like me sitting there at the McDonald's of the first location I had at midnight thinking, oh my gosh, is this going to work? Well, I know it's going to work because I can at least pay my rents. That was comforting to me.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. I have to say, we had done our pre-show, sort of research on you, and we've been working with you guys now for a few months, but everything you're saying is so cool.
Yeah.
I really love your dedication to the brand. Let's pretend I'm a potential franchisee and I want to do it right. What kind of liquid capital should I have access to? And really, for me to do it right, starting with the suite, but also building a flagship, what sort of time frame should I have in my mind? If I want to be a great franchisee for you, give it to me straight. Tell me, what I should ideally have.
Yeah, it's a great question. Liquid capital depends on the market. We are just entering into California, and I'm a little scared of all the regulations there. So I'm requiring more capital for California than I would for other areas. And I'm also out the gate saying, hey, these are the challenges that we're facing moving into California, like the minimum wage is higher. Yeah. And so, for a suite, we can get a suite up and running with a with a run rate for 110,000. That gets you the franchise fee and everything to get you up and running. And people need to realize like that suite, you're putting money into it while it's building, but you're also making money while it's building. So it kind of feels like less than actually is needed to get this up and running. For a flagship's costing about $350 for a brand new build on average in the country. That's what I'm seeing. And it qualifies for SBA loans. So you can put 10% down on an SBA. Runway rate wise, it might be another 50 to 60,000 that I want just like 6 months of like working capital to make sure that I'm getting off the ground.
Yeah.
Now I'm finding second gen spaces if I'm careful. And this is the nice thing about the suite to flag model is I can build the suite and then be patient to look for a flag. And sometimes like 50% of the time for me in Phoenix, I'm finding a pre-built space of either a competitor or a doctor that has like multiple rooms or like a massage place or something that already has a build out. And then it's a cosmetic change and it's not 350, it's like much less than that. And it's quicker than it normally would be to open. So those come about and we can be patient if we have the suite to like move into those as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me about your support team for franchisees. You know, how deep is your team? What kind of support can franchisees expect? Do you guys have sort of do they get like someone assigned to them? Is there a weekly conference call where all franchisees are involved? Do you guys have an annual conference? Tell me about that.
Yeah. People love the support. I think when we did the franchise business review, we ranked in the top 5 percentile. Don't quote me on that. 5 to 10 percentile for support. It was like so good. And we're like in the top 50 of brands, I think, on there in FBR because of like the brand itself is really strong. But what we do is when somebody comes on, we assign them a rock star franchisee who's got like 8 locations and meets with them every single week. We put an entire course together on Kajabi where they can learn everything about the business, like fully. They do the weekly meetings from -3 months to opening till 3 months after they open, or just as long as they need to get to that point. Then we pass them off to our growth team, and the growth team works with them on a monthly basis or however frequently they would like to work with us. If there's a problem, we can work more often, but most people choose once a month for a call. And then on top of that, I don't show it here, but I have a full podcast room. And so every week, the old CEO, it's like send a newsletter out or, for us, I do a video every single week and I go over case studies. I go over people I'm talking to. I'm going over new updates of my entire team is doing. And I'm sending that out to the company. And then there's like comments that people can make. I use a software called Loom. It's phenomenal. And I sent 227 videos out this year already, just like broadcasting, because I think a CEO needs to be in front of the company and they need to know what's going on. And at first I was like scared to do this. I was like, nobody's going to want to like listen to me for like 20 minutes a week. But then I'm like, no, Brigham, like literally 20 minutes is all they get, right? With the brand, they want to hear about these things, and it's been wildly like important to our company that I keep doing these. And so I send those out every week. Our advertising team sends it out once a month. So they get videos there. And we do an annual conference. It's very different from most conferences. There's no lectures. It's we just pick like an epic place. So the first year we did Tahiti. We were like 24 people. We did Tahiti, we did Iceland, then we did Belize. This year we're doing Kona, Hawaii.
Wow.
And we just go spend some cool time together. And, I think it's important that people are on a hike and they're just like, so what are you doing to make it work? And they build those friendships. I think that means a lot more than like a conference in a convention center. And they bring their families. It's like, it's very cool. It's a very special.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I feel like you're doing a great job of responsible franchising. You've got it's incredible the sort of the ramp that this business has, how quickly you can ramp up, the need for it, the demand, and how you guys have grown. It's all really impressive, and to have that kind of support, I think is outstanding. When people start to explore your franchise right now and speak to franchisees, how's that happening? Are there like weekly conference calls? Like, how do people, once they start to engage in your process, how do they learn more?
Yeah, every Wednesday there's a leadership call where there's franchisees that come on and they like talk about their experience. So they can just join those. We have a full sales team or dev team, business development, where like if anyone's interested in learning about the franchise, like we can take them from A to Z. And we want transparency. So we want new people looking in to talk to everybody. If they want to talk to somebody, we're going to try to make it happen for them because we want them to get into the business thinking, I know exactly what I'm getting into. I know the pros, the cons, everything. And so we try to keep an open channel with franchisees so they can speak to them.
Cool. I mean, listen, look at the transparency. All the locations in the item 19, good, bad, and ugly. I think that's fabulous. You have a franchisor that operates multiple locations, so they know what they're doing. It's a fun culture. It's a great looking brand.
Thanks.
There's so many positives here. What haven't we asked on this podcast that you think is important for people to know that we haven't covered?
How much time are you going to have to spend in this franchise? Yeah.
How much time? Let's hear it.
Uh, so most franchise owners have a full-time job and do this on the side until this becomes their full-time job.
Okay.
So
Wow.
you don't have to stop your job. This is the cool thing about this, right? Like if you think about what makes this business work, right? People are coming in, they're getting services, and then they leave. So we've got to get the tech really, really dialed in. The nudges, the appointment reminders, the like back-end communication, it's all handled overseas. You don't have to manage any of that. We've got to get the marketing really solid. And our marketing is like best in class. Like, trust me, there's no one even close to what we're doing on the marketing side. It's insanely good. So you got to get that down. You got to build a beautiful box, business in a box, this whole idea of a franchise. And then you've got to manage people. And if you can do those things well, you've got a really good business. We have to stock the rooms once a month. It's not like this business is like, really hard to get up and running and like takes, it's not like a sushi restaurant where you're like flying fish in every day, right? And so if you can manage like a couple of people well, that's it. That's your times. I have a weekly meeting with my team. If I'm managing a location, I have a weekly meeting with my team. And then, one more thing. I forgot this. This is what's really cool. So we noticed like a gap in like management with our franchisees. So we tried to automate this as well. So we created a company called Remote Works, and we outsource and find the best overseas people to manage salons here. And I started looking at this and I was like, okay, what is it that you really need to manage? And I went down the list and I'm like, every single thing on this besides talking to people could be done overseas. The scheduling, the inventory purchasing, the no-shows, the on-calls, the talking to clients that are like upset. Like if we get the right person, I'm not talking like, entry-level person. I'm talking like somebody with a degree, HR resources, economics, like really smart people. They just happen to live in the wrong country. Not the wrong country, but the country where they don't make as much money. We can find like best in class there and then have them manage the salons. And so when somebody starts at Hello Sugar, we give them like the opportunity. They don't have to take it, but it's $14 an hour. And these are not like entry level workers. These are like really, really strong candidates that like would be paid like $60,000 to $80,000 here in the States. Mm-hmm. And so for $14 an hour, they can buy 5 hours at a time. And so as their business scales, they can buy these overseas managers that manage practically 80% of the entire business for them, except for like the interpersonal skills that are happening here. So they can focus on just like building relationships with their team and make something really awesome.
That's great. That's great. I mean, again, it's like for us, I would say with our Pinks franchise, we're probably spending a couple hours a day sort of managing the manager, if you will. Some days it's more, some days it's less. Some days people quit. You got to get more involved.
Yes.
But the other side of it too is we're always thinking about the business. And I bet you feel the same way. It's like, even if you're not engaged in the business, you're constantly thinking about it. How can we improve? How can we get better? So I would say to all of you out there, even when you have a model that is more sort of life work balance friendly, still know that your mind is always going to be on that business.
I think you got to be thinking about so a business owner could be spending their time in two areas. They could be spending it in operations, the day-to-day, the routine stuff that you're doing all the time, or they could be spending it on growth. And I want our business owners spending 80% of their time on growth and 20% on operations, and not the other way.
Yeah, that's smart. It's smart. You got to be growth minded. It's like someone was asking me the other day, let's have a conversation about the margins and this and that. And I'm like, your first couple of years, you've got to be focused on the growth of gross revenue. Okay. You've got to get revenue. You've got to get cash flow. If you're already so stuck in the minutia, you're never going to grow.
Yeah. Well said. Well said, Jack.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Jill, anything else on your?
No, I love hearing the story. I think it's so cool what you've done. And, I think this is really enticing for potential, franchisees. So I'm so glad
Jill.
you're able to do this.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So glad we could spend some time with you. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. For those of you that would like to know more about Hello Sugar, you can, of course, go to their website. If you'd like to work with us at the Franchise Insiders on exploring Hello Sugar and hundreds of other franchise opportunities, The best way to do it, text us 305-710-0050. That's a lot of zeros. Or go to thefranchiseinsiders.com or weboughtafranchise.com.